Good morning. I'm Dr. Al Freeman, Director of LCMS School Ministry, and welcome to Tuesday Talks. We have Dave Kushel with us once again from Concordia Plans, and we give thanks to Dave for his willingness to serve in this capacity and lead us through what today will be the conclusion of this round of Tuesday Talks. We'll see if we can get maybe Dave back eventually for a round two or something.
All right. Well, thank you, Al and Will, for having me again. I can't believe we're at 4 times and finishing this up now, but so awesome to be here. And thank you all of you for joining us or watching this potentially later. So I titled this Staying Connected Over the Not So Long Hot Summer. It might be hot, but summer certainly can go by fast, right? And sometimes we have the best of intentions. We're going to do this. We're going to do these things, have these plans, stay connected. And maybe sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't happen. We're kind of using the words connected and engaged kind of interchangeably here. But, the idea Al and I talked about last month is really just like keeping that connection, not losing that over the summer months. You've done so much, you've built so much over the school year. And we'll get to that here in a second. So same slide. If you've been here before, you've heard this before. So thanks for putting up with this. But my name is Dave Kushel. I've spent 10 years in public school communications here in the St. Louis area. Working with a couple different school districts and a consortium of school districts. I have been 8.5, closing in not long from 9 years at Concordia Plans as Senior Director of Communications, current title. Absolutely love working at Concordia Plans, love what we do. And I am an LCMS school parent and a former school board member. Both of my daughters went through Green Park Lutheran School here in St. Louis through 8th grade, Lutheran South High School. One graduated and just finished her first year at Concordia, Chicago, and the other is finishing her sophomore year at South. So really happy to be here and speaking to all of you about communications in schools, really combining a couple of my passions. Don't get me wrong, I love communicating about employee benefits, but communicating about Lutheran schools is really exciting for me. So really happy to be here and to have the invite. So today we're going to talk about a few different things. We thought about like staying engaged over the summer, communicating over the summer. There was a couple different ideas that came up. So this is kind of I don't call it a mishmash, but a few different things we're going to cover here. Some ideas. You'll see if you look at the bottom of the screen, a lot of this stuff has come from different resources, things that I've found, things online that you can utilize too. I'm going to point you in a certain direction. So we'll go ahead and get started. The first piece here is really kind of the why. Why are we talking about staying connected? Why is this so important? It's probably obvious to most on the call. If you've joined us, obviously you're placing some value in communications and keeping connected. But really you want to reinforce messaging. You really want to use those summer months to reinforce some of the key things that you've been communicating through the year. So you can think of it as kind of a recap and kind of a preview time at the same time. And utilizing those few months where things are hopefully a little quieter during your day to think about, let's remind some people some of the great things that happened here this school year, some of the accomplishments we had. Remind them why your school is the right place for them. We know amongst our schools, amongst private schools, Christian schools, it's sometimes a competition for those students and for those families. And we can't always just assume that the families that have been engaged with us are going to stay engaged with us and keep their kids in our school. So reminders as to why this is the right fit for them, some of the great things we do here can only be helpful to your efforts. And position families as recruiters for last minute enrollment. For those, if you've got kind of that rolling enrollment that keeps going and you're bringing, hopefully looking for new people to come in over the summer, new families, use your current families as best you can. We've talked about that a couple months ago. We talked about consistent messaging. We've talked about aligning on mission and vision and those kinds of messages that you can share. We'll talk about that here in a second too, in a different way. Those kinds of questions, or those kind of messages you can share are really, really important. So keep those kind of communications open and keep people engaged and thinking about your school in those ways, about those important ways you want to emphasize. Obviously, build and strengthen relationships. You can announce new initiatives and changes in advance if that's appropriate, right? If you have the right avenue, the right channel for doing that with the right group, you can maybe do some things in advance, give yourself a little more lead time, give yourself a little more time to explain the why, maybe solicit feedback as needed when those things are rolled out, those types of questions. And then, the bottom line is you've worked hard all year to build relationships and communicate well and be collaborative and have back and forth communications. So you might as well keep that going during the summer months and look to build on that even more as the new school year starts. So just kind of some overall reasons why it's really important to stay connected with those families. Think about it with your staff too. We don't really get into that much in this one, but you think about how you stay connected to your staff over those maybe a month or two when they're out of the building, and build and strengthen those relationships. Like I said, we have a few different topics here. The first one I'm going to cover, actually, something that Al talked about. I think he talked about last month on one of the sessions, and we talked about afterwards. And so kind of stole this idea from him, and I probably didn't give him the proper credit on the slide, but that's why he's getting it right now. And Al talked about the State of the School report. So really this is thinking about before the school year ends. And I know for a lot of our schools, this is like right now. And so, well, I don't have time to do this, right? Or maybe not to do it the way you'd want to do it, but maybe you're already doing it. I'm sure a lot of great schools are already doing this type of thing. But Al talked last month about this opportunity to update the school community on the great things that have happened or are happening at the school, right? So the topics could include a lot of different things. Academic successes. I talked about this is your chance to do like a review. Like this is what's happening and also what's coming, right? So academic successes, some of our test score highlights. If we're an 8th grade school or a high school, where are the grads going? What are they going to be doing? That's exciting. Those those students or those parents of those younger students like to see that kind of thing. That, oh yeah, those kids are going to these high schools. That's great. I hope our kids go to those high schools too, or get into that college or whatever it is. Projects coming up, initiatives, things that might be, maybe it's in the building, maybe it's technology-wise, maybe it's the curriculum, something is changing. But what is coming up that they can look forward to for next school year? Build some excitement, even at the end of this year, about what's coming next year. Staffing news, right? Mrs. So-and-so is retiring after 35 years, and we thank her, and they already know that, right? But it kind of fits in that wrapper as you look at what kind of the end of the year looks like. How all of this supports our mission and vision. We talked about mission and vision in the second month of this presentation, and how these kind of things we're working toward achieving our mission. We're working toward our vision. And so those kinds of messages are really critical to layer in wherever it makes sense. And as kind of a state of the school report is a place where that probably makes a lot of sense because you're kind of summarizing where we are today, where we're headed. And how they can support the school. I talked about that on the last slide, but you're talking to parents. What can you do over the summer to promote the school, to help the school, talk about the school? Same thing with staff. What role can they play? So these are the kinds of things you can talk about in a State of the School report. A few other things about this, and then I'm going to toss it over to Al for a second because this was his thing. So I just kind of built on it. A report like this can be delivered through multiple channels, whatever makes the most sense, right? Whether it's a letter or an email home, face-to-face gatherings would be great. Maybe you could do some of it on social. Maybe you do something through video that ends up getting posted on social or emailed. And then the last couple bullets here are similar to what we've talked about the last couple months, right? Keeping the key message consistent. So we do want to talk about successes. We want to talk about wins. We want to talk about where we're headed in a consistent way, using the same type of messaging, even though we might be talking to slightly different audiences. But at the same time, we can differentiate. And we talked about some of that last month about how we can basically say the same thing to the parent group or the teacher group or the maybe the church council or the pastors. But you might change that a little bit to make it a better fit for that audience. So keeping the message consistent, be it differentiating some of the way it's delivered or some of the context built around the messaging, or some of the kind of details, extra details, either provided or not provided, can really make that messaging hopefully resonate a little bit stronger with your audiences. So Al, not to put you on the spot, but anything you want to add on this topic?
No, I just always use that at the end of the school year. It's nice to have some photos, some slides to tell the story. And really, that's what you're doing. You're telling the story from the school year, and you're recapping the excitement, the events, and all your different areas. And again, as Dave was saying, it should flow from your mission statement. But you want to highlight the academic achievements, the athletic achievements, the drama, the fun events that you did. Maybe it was a special person day where you had donuts and muffins or whatever else, and just all the events that connect them to the school. And again, Dave, you used the word connect at the very beginning. That is a theme for next year. And really, that's what you're doing with all of this communication. You're connecting them to the school so that they are aware of what's going on. If it might be a crisis situation we talked about early on in our Talk About It Tuesdays, that still is connecting them so that they feel, oh yeah, I'm a part. I know what's going on as much as I can know, and I have that trust situation. Same thing here. You're providing them the details. You're highlighting the student achievements. You're highlighting your educators. Make sure you highlight all the constituent groups. It's a good reminder that you have a board, and thanks for their year. And the students, the educators, the parents, all of those constituent groups. So they know that you're seeing them, right? That's part of this State of the School report. They know that they're being seen, being heard, and they are part of this great community. And also, we talk about admissions and enrollment. This connection is, again, student retention, family retention that you're doing. And hopefully you're looking at continuous enrollment, which has been around now for several years that we talk about at schools. Instead of every year giving families that option where, oh, it's re-enrollment time. Oh, well, I didn't know that I had a choice to leave. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. Now I'll look around. Keep them. Continuous enrollment, and part of that continuous enrollment is telling the story and prepping them for the next school year and giving them a little taste of, hey, here are all the things that we're working on. Keep it short. You don't want a long report necessarily, but you want the highlights. You want the projects. And again, the letter and email home, I tried to do the face-to-face, have a night for the parents. You can, the great thing with Zoom these days, it can be an in-person and Zoom event at the same time. Record it, push it out to the families that can make it. Do the social media points, the posts, the quick hitters, here are highlights. And again, those social media posts, you can break down that State of the School report and post the highlights throughout the summertime.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Countdown for the next school year. Look at all that we accomplished in blank school year, and looking ahead, here are all the great things that we're looking forward to the next school year to continue to build on this. So it's not necessarily just a one and done. This is a whole building process with everything that you're doing.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about next a little bit of social media stuff, and that's exactly what you're saying, Al. Is you've got this great. We did this. These other things are coming. How can we feature these? How can we get some legs from this for maybe the entirety of the summer on social, right? Piece by piece, and we'll talk a little bit more in a second.
Yeah, and I'll go back to the last presentation. We talked about differentiation of messaging. Really, This is what you're doing. You're differentiating. This is what makes us a great school, a school of excellence and ministry. And here are our highlights so that it's constantly out in the forefront. That's messaging, right? Get it out in the forefront all the time. Be constant with it. Don't overwhelm, so you got to find the sweet spot. I just read an article this morning in Education Week about how the public schools, there was a survey done, and students are feeling more disconnected with their teachers than they have been in prior years. There was an uptick in 2020, COVID year, because, again, they were looking for connections. It was a weird year. They were, going back to kind of cling to teachers a little bit. But now studies are showing that in the public school system, there's a disconnect between students and teachers. We always say one of the strengths of our Lutheran schools are relationships, right? Relationships with students and teachers, parents, the school, the collegial relationships that we have. So, I'd look to highlight that because, again, you're highlighting, leaning into your strengths as that differentiation.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to move on. I mentioned social. I'll put it out there. I am not a social media expert. I'm going to present some things, some really great resources I found online. I am a part of what we do in social media at Concordia Plans, kind of strategy-wise, but there are definitely resources out there. Many of you probably have accessed them, seen them, read similar things to what we're going to talk about today. But just a good reminder, right, that social is a good opportunity, is a good channel to use to connect, to stay connected with people, especially over those summer months. So this information came from an article that came from the website. You can see at the bottom, socialschoolforedu.com. This is one that, and I have a slide later with this also, that Al pointed me toward. I think the name is Andrea Gribble, who is the expert. Really, really great content. So I would definitely suggest that you check that out. There are some free resources on there. There are some blog posts on there with free ideas, which is where this came from, one of those blog posts. There are also, of course, books that you can buy, and I'm sure there's subscription-based things and all those things. But really recommend that you check that out. She really is very knowledgeable in this area and has experts that she works with too. So I pulled this one. I thought this was interesting. She talks about generating new ideas for school social media posts. So the core of your school social media posts during the school year are probably going to be, academic highlights, maybe athletic highlights, maybe clubs and activities, things that are happening right now. That are really, really kind of newsworthy, but things that you want to put out there. This blog post was really kind of about, what else should you be doing? And so, first one was illustrate your vision and mission statement. We've talked about that now for a few weeks, right? How can we demonstrate our vision and mission through social? Whether it's a picture and then the text that is attached to it speaks to that, or maybe it's something with like a word cloud type thing, or whatever that looks like. That how can you display your vision and mission on your social? Ask your school leaders, ask your teachers, what does our community deserve to know? And that kind of ties into that third one. Identify what makes your school stand out. What should we be telling people, right? You might be thinking, well, this is just what we do here. That sub-bullet, what seems normal to you could be special to those who don't see it every day. So, this is just how we do things. This is how we've always done this activity, or how we've honored these students, or how we've lived out our mission, or how we're working toward a vision. The whole community does not know those things. They're not living those things like you and your staff are day to day. So those kinds of things could be really, really interesting to folks who aren't, there in the building like you are every day. So think about what makes that school special, what makes your school special, what makes us stand out, what could we be highlighting. That kind of like on the previous slide, you want people to feel really good about this connection they have to your school, that they are at the right place their children are at the right place, that they've made the right choice of a school, and feel really confident in that. And these kinds of things will just reinforce that, kind of keep that positive feelings going, and then hopefully build those positive feelings in a way that when they have that opportunity to speak well about the school, they do that with other prospective parents, families, even current parents, whatever the case is. And then, of course, start with a calendar. It can be overwhelming, and I have a slide here and a couple slides to figure out what am I going to do. So sit down with that school calendar and say, what should we share? What makes sense that we could share on social? So it's a good way to start. I'm quite sure that those who are on this call probably already have these social channels built. But even we at Concordia Plans have found, sometimes we need to spend more time focusing on a certain channel or on a certain group or a certain message that we want to get out there. And those things can kind of fall by the wayside as you kind of go through the daily routine of your school. So summer might be a good time to refocus. So that's coming. So where does your audience live online? I'm not going to spend time reading this to you. I just included this because I thought it was interesting that there's a lot of crossover, right? And you can even think about your own social media habits. Do you use Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or LinkedIn? The answer is probably yes. You probably use all of them. Or maybe you have used, whatever the case is, or YouTube, of course. And you look at the age group, you look at the demographics, really it's all over the place, right? So it's kind of what will work best for your audience. You can kind of think about the parents that you're trying to reach, the community that you're trying to reach. Where are they probably online? Probably pretty easy to figure out, either just by observation or by having those discussions. But that slide in there is just kind of a reminder that there's a lot of options out there, and they are there's a lot of crossover there. The next slide has a little bit more information. I liked this slide, and you can see the resource I found down below. Just had a couple of tips that I wanted to bring up if you are posting on social. I like on the Facebook one, they say keep it positive with uplifting posts and great visuals. Share updates in other ways. This author was writing, this isn't necessarily the best place to write, all the news, here's this is happening, calendar updates, but share something positive. Make people smile when they see that post. Instagram wise, we know that is, exploding in popularity among younger people, including parents who are millennials. People like to see photos of themselves. We know that to be true. Twitter, this is something that we talk about in our own place. Can we have a Twitter profile because of the amount of kind of time that you need to spend monitoring that, responding, being quick in those responses? Don't go down the path of something just because you think it sounds like a cool idea if it's not something that you really can support realistically from a manpower or just having the energy to work to have a resource like that. LinkedIn, why would we use LinkedIn? Well, it could be a good place for your school's profile to be built. And if you're focusing on professionals in your area who are looking to send their children to school. And of course, YouTube, obviously hugely popular site, but you don't want to put junk online, right? You want to have those professional, high quality looking videos. You may not have a professional videographer on staff, but just considerations for you as you think about what you're doing on social, what to do on social, area you might want to get into. Again, a lot of great resources online on the topic. I think this is the last slide on social, is really just thinking about scheduling content. Al just talked about some ideas. It might not be June, July, and August. It might be like Al said, every Friday we want to do this type of thing. Every Wednesday we want to do this type of thing. And that way you keep yourself it's easier on yourself, and you can ask others to help generate content. And then of course, you can think about what are we doing on email, what are we doing on our website, what are we doing on Facebook and Instagram, if those are the two that we've decided are the key channels for us. So a lot of different ways you can schedule. You can find those tools online also. But we'll just kind of wanted to bring that up as a good way to stay connected. And I kept this in there. This is what I mentioned at the very beginning, is this website, socialschool4edu.com. I did not know about this till a couple months ago when Al pointed it out, but I'd suggest you check that out if you are looking to grow, expand, improve your social media presence as a school. And finally, kind of the finale of this presentation and also our 4 weeks together. So I'll try not to get too teary-eyed here as we wind down. More great ideas. I sent an email out to some folks in the LCMS school world, and a couple of ed execs in particular came through with some ideas they shared with me. Some of the stuff is similar to what Al was kind of talking about earlier. If you look at that kind of down the line, that spirit wear contest, post vacation pics and school shirt using a hashtag, where are people right now? The picture I included here is from Green Park, where my kids went to school and I was on the school board. You all are familiar with Flat Stanley from the book. They have Flat Stanley the Viking, so you can see he has his Viking helmet on. And, where's Flat Stanley the Viking and where are our families and all that great stuff. Also had someone suggested kind of those videos with devotions and or at-home science experiments, just ways to keep people connected. This isn't really the same kind of connections as we're talking about earlier. We're talking about, hey, reinforce the mission, reinforce the vision, give them the updates, remind them of the updates, but just ways to kind of keep those positive feelings going. Probably nothing on here that is too revolutionary for all of you, but I wanted to include it as a way to think about staying connected. Al mentioned also in that Forward Fridays idea, thinking about postcards or maybe short videos from a teacher to next year's class and things like that. So wanted to share some of this I got from a couple of our district education executives who were very helpful in sending me some information. I've got just a couple more, three more slides left. And this is really kind of overall, as we're kind of wrapping this group of four conversations, just some overall kind of communications reminders for school leaders to kind of improve communication school home. This could be school to your staff, teacher, parent, principal to staff, just some general guidelines, right? So create a subject line that resonates. If your communications are generic, confusing, or require a second glance, if the subject lines do that, you might lose parents before they even open the message. That's a really simple guideline, but just think about what am I introing with? Am I drawing them in with this subject line? Organize and focus your message, right? Get that clear information, that most important information at the top. Tell them what you need to tell them, and make that call to action very clear. We have those conversations at Concordia Plans. We're sending an email about this part of the health plan. What do we want people to do? We want people to go to a website? Do we want them to download a resource? Do we want them to call us? Do we want them to just know they have a great new resource and use it when it's needed? What do we want people to do? That's a really, really important part of your message. So many times, you'll read things and, okay, they told me something, and at the end I left reading it, and I thought, why did they tell me that? What am I supposed to do with this information? And just think about that as you're crafting communications. Write a message you'd want to receive yourself. Provide the pertinent details. Don't be lengthy in paragraphs. Think about, would I want to read this? If this came from, an organization that I was involved with, or my own kid's school, which is, somewhere else, whatever the case may be. Use consistent branding and structure. We talked about consistent branding a couple months ago, but break through the clutter so that they know this is coming from your school. This is coming, whether maybe it's from the principal, the head of school, maybe one of the teachers, but that they know this is coming from your school because it looks consistent. And then get everyone on the same page. And when I say everyone, think about everyone in the school who could be sending out external communications. Get everyone on the same page. Have a clear set of guidelines. This is how we do it. These are the channels we use. This is the template we use. These are the key messages we want to reinforce. You always have to have the mission on there, whatever the case may be. So just kind of these last two slides are just kind of really simple things to think about as you're crafting communications, whether it's an email or a social post. And there's rules for all those things, of course, beyond this simple list. But just ways to kind of keep the messaging clear, consistent, easy to read, easy to consume. And my last slide here, which if you've joined us before, you've seen before, is that keep it about the kids. When we're messaging, whether that's on social, whether that's at that state of the school report, whether it's some communication you're sending out midsummer, talk about the kids, talk about how this is impacting the kids and how you're caring for the children of the school, and tie that back to that. So that's it for the presentation. Covered a few different topics, state of the school, social media, kind of some best practices around communications, but really all focused on keeping that connection to those that you are connected with. Growing a connection, maybe using the summertime to grow it in different ways. And so that when August comes back around, August, September, you haven't lost that connection and you can continue to build with the awesome new things that are happening next school year too and keep those communicated. That's the last slide, and I'm sure Al and I might chat, or there might be some questions, but I want to thank you all for joining and for this opportunity. I've said it every time, school communications is a passion of mine and Lutheran schools are a passion of mine, so happy to be here to help. And if anyone at all has further questions or wishes to learn more about any of the things we've talked about, or just wants a little, have a conversation, you are welcome to reach out to me at Concordia Plans, or you can certainly come through Al or Will if you want to reach me, and I am happy to talk to any Lutheran school who would like to talk, because this is, I believe, really important topics we've been covering.